All right, we're live. We're going live. Let's see. Today's the 18th, Tuesday, 18th of June, 2024. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres, and this is the Anyone Can Farm Experience Live Chat, Tuesday night edition. And we talk about homesteading, we talk about small farms, and just plain living. Just plain living. So, I hope everybody's had a good a day as I did. This time of the year, I am starting my hay cutting, and it's one of those things where when you get started, you feel good that you're doing it, but getting to that point, getting all the equipment ready and getting all your fuel lined up and all the equipment, you kind of think there could be lying ahead, because it can. It definitely can. And yes, I started yesterday. We've had a lot of rain this summer so far, and the hay is thick, right? So that's good, but it can also lead to. So I got over there yesterday, and I went around 2 times the field, 2 times, and this is just a small 10-acre field. Well, it's pretty big, actually. 10 acres is pretty big. I went around twice, and then I had a breakdown, right? I lost it's called a guard. The mower that I have is kind of old, and it's a sickle bar mower, so it has blades that go back and forth like this, and it cuts everything off right at the ground level, and then it sweeps it up through that condition it. They actually crush it. They crush the grasses so they'll dry, right? And I broke our around, man. I didn't hear anything. I'm pretty careful on my hay fields. You know, early in the season when the grass is really short, I'm out there looking, is there anything out here that shouldn't be out here? Because when the grass it was up to the middle of my chest. So when it gets that high, if there's something in there, you don't see it. And if you pull that into the hay bind, you can break it. And I did. I broke it first time around. And so I had to put it all back together and bring it back over to the shop and jack it up and get under there and start taking it apart so I could fix it. And that's what led to the subject that I want to talk about tonight is finding solutions, right? Finding solutions. Because here's what happened. The part that I needed is on the shelf a lot of times at Tractor Supply and Family Home and Fleet. And whenever I see them, I buy them, right? They're $17 a piece. You know, they're made in China and India, and it's a cheap part, but that's what we get. And so I collect those parts, and I have them on the shelf. And I had 2, and I got the hay bind all ready to put the new ones on. And I found that the bolts were frozen. I couldn't get the bolts off. And so I had to bring the torches out and cut the bolts. And then I had to find some new bolts that would fit in there, and I did that. And then I started looking around for these parts, and I thought they were sitting right on the top of my toolbox, right on the corner of my toolbox. They've been there all winter long. I've moved them a couple of times to get them out of my way. I knew where they were. They don't belong there, but that's another story. And I went to grab them, and they weren't there. So I just thought, what is going on? Who would move those? Why would anybody? And I share the shop with my 2 youngest sons, right? and they were always building stuff, which is a whole nother subject. Good subject, but I won't go into that tonight. And they weren't there. I searched high and low, and I could not find them. So I got to get this done. So that means I have to go into town, which is Cadillac, which is 20 miles away, go to Farm and Fleet and see if they have any on the shelf. So I was a mess. It was greasy and sweaty and everything. I didn't want to get in my wife's car like that. So I have to clean myself, right? I have to clean up first. Then I have to find my wallet, and I have to do that, whining, and take off. And I've only made it around the field twice, so I haven't really gotten that far. So my attitude driving into town was not good. It just wasn't good, right? I was thinking, why me? Why don't I have newer equipment? Why do I have to live with this old equipment? Why don't I just go into not, And so I go into Cadillac. I go to Tractor Supply, and that is a nightmare. And they don't have any. And so I asked the lady, and she said, "Oh, we don't carry the green ones and the black ones, but we don't carry the yellow ones anymore." But that's okay. Why argue with her that she should carry them? I'm sure she didn't make that decision. So I go to Family Farm and Fleet. They don't have them either. And the lady that was there, who I deal with a lot, and she's found stuff for me, she said, "Yeah, we don't carry those anymore. People don't use them." I said, "Well, I do." So there I was. Now I don't have parts that I need. So I just said, wait a minute here. I just stopped in my tracks. I'm standing in an air conditioned store, and I'm like, there's got to be a way to overcome this. There's got to be a way to overcome this. Just slow down, relax, quit that attitude of why me, why is it always me? And I got to looking at the black ones that were on the shelf, and they were very similar to the ones that I have. They just had a ridge on them that was about a 1/4 inch wide, and it was maybe 3/8 of an inch high. And the yellow one that I had in my hand didn't have that on it. And I had tried the black ones before, and they won't fit because of that ridge. I got to looking at that, and I thought, I'm going to cut that off. So I got 2 of them. They had 2. I got them. I brought them home, put them in the vise, got the grinder out, and started grinding on it. And it's fairly hard steel, didn't want to grind. So I put some heat on it. I changed it up a little bit, and then I ground it off. Tried to fit it. Needed to grind a little bit more off, and it fit on just fine. Right? So that was ringing in my mind. What happened was my ear, and I was like, there you go. They have to delete one off the shelf, and they delete the one that I need. Isn't that just perfect? Isn't that perfect? And she's kind of looking at me like, what do you want me to do? I can't help. And then she had to go on the milk run. So she left, and I fumed. I threw some things around, said some bad words probably. And then I just, wait a minute. I can solve this problem. I just need to think, right? And sure enough, I worked through it. Got the black one on that I'd modified, turned the machine on. Whoa, it works perfect. Went over and made 4 more rounds around, and then a couple of crosses, and then it was too dark. I couldn't see, and I don't like cutting hay in the dark anyway, so I just called it good. And by that time, it's it must have been 9 o'clock, I suppose. or even later. And so I came home and stripped my clothes off, got in the pool, got cleaned up, and by the time I got in the house, it was like 10 or 10:30, and had something to eat and went to bed. And then this morning I got up and I was able to complete the task. And I got to thinking about that whole scenario that I just went through. And it's like, do I ever not solve a problem? The answer is no. I always solve the problem. Always. I can't think of a time when I've had to ditch a piece of equipment because I just couldn't fix it. Or some scenario that's happened, and I wasn't able to back up from it and reach a solution to the problem. I always do. I always do. I mean, if you want to be successful in your homesteading operation, you got to acknowledge the fact that sooner or later I'm going to figure this out. But I'm not going to quit until I do. And I got to think, I was thinking about that today as I was working, and I worked until just half hour ago, came up to the house. I finished what I wanted to get done for the day. Did fight a little bit with my phone over the weather report, right? It says that we're not supposed to have rain until Thursday, Friday, but it rained last night and it rained on me today as I was cutting hay. But I even dealt with that, and I thought, well, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get this done. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get this hay in the barn. I am going to get this hay in the barn. I will solve the problem, right? I am solving for X. And I thought if I had mastered that thought process a lot sooner in my life, I would have probably gone further than I have up till this point. I'd probably be further along than I am now, right? Because I definitely have a distance to go that I want to accomplish. And, I will get there. I will solve that. I will get there. And so I started thinking about this. I'm talking about solving things in processes that I'm doing, equipment that I use, on and on and on. And I come to the place where I know, and this fits in with what we talked about last week, repairing, right? Repairing equipment. And I've got this hay bine that was built in probably 1965. Not that old, really. I was born in 1960, so it's not really that old. But it's got some miles on it. And there are some things about it that I don't really like compared to the newer equipment, the disc bines, things of that nature. But it's paid for. It's definitely paid for. I don't owe a thing on it. So if I were to make it my business to change out all the guards and all the cutting sections on it, and maybe put in, let's change out the chains because they break too, and just generally anything that's not 100% fix it. Because when that machine was brand new, it was a state-of-the-art hay bine. It was the hottest thing going. If you had one of those in this neighborhood, people drive by and they'd be like, whoa, look at that. Look at that hay bine that he's got. So when you have that attitude, like, I will solve this problem, all of a sudden things open up to you, and it's no longer, I'm going to ditch this piece of junk and I'm going to get me something new. I'm going to go out and spend $15,000 on a hay bine. Well, that would be just perfect, wouldn't it? And that wouldn't be a new hay bine. That would not be new. And I would suppose that if I were smarter, I would take this one and just scrap it. And the 15,000 that I would spend on a new one, I would just buy hay. I just buy it. I don't have to cut my own. I could just buy it for that kind of money. So anyway, I got through that whole, made, successful rounds around the field, got it finished. I'm in line for tomorrow to be able to roll it over and then hopefully get it baled up, and it will wind up in the barn. So, and as I thought about that whole process that I go through constantly, I think I waste a lot of time fretting about things instead of just blindly going into it. Why worry about it? Just do it, right? And so that brings me to the next thing that's going on, that's definitely a problem. And if it stays on the track that it's on, we are all going to deal with it. And it is the bird flu. And we've talked about this. And we've engaged with the powers that be. They're not the ones that came up with it. If you read all the information that you can find, you're going to find out that it's further along in other countries. Like the machine, the worldwide machine that has found their way into agriculture and health, it seems like, has said, we're going to have another pandemic, and this is what it's going to be. And then they put their finger in the belly button of probably the president of the United States and say, this is what we're going to do. And he says to his director, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then that's at the federal level. And at the federal level, they put their finger in the belly button of all the state directors and say, this is what we're going to do. And we should know by now that the people who supposedly serve us in these entities, like Department of Agriculture, I pick on them a lot, but they're really a bunch of turds. They're going to do what they're told. It has nothing to do with the reality of the situation, right? It appears at this point as though bird flu is going to be used as a nexus to austerity measures. And I think there's a lot of different groups that are in on this. They've come out and they've said that, the food pyramid, that's good, but you really shouldn't even be eating that much meat. You need to be eating grains and legumes, beans, and way less meat. You don't need meat, in your life. And they're kind of saying that it's good for the planet. And if it's good for the planet, then it's good for you. And so it appears that's the direction that they're going. And it would be nice if we could shake somebody at the World Health Organization and say, stop this. But that's not going, you can't negotiate with them. They've got their agenda and they're going to work it. And that's all there's to it. And I think the best you can do at this point, like if we're looking for a solution to this garbage that's going to be coming our way, the solution would be to shake the number one guy at the World Health Organization and say, don't do this, because if you do this, you're going to upset us and we're going to do this, this, and this. But that's not a good solution at this point. It just doesn't ring for me like we're not going to be able to do that. So we can, and there's a guy that I know, I've asked him not to do this, but he is trying to negotiate with the Department of Agriculture and convince them that it's not a good idea to do this. And he doesn't quite understand at this point. He doesn't listen to the show, but he doesn't quite understand at this point that you can't negotiate with them if you don't have anything to negotiate with. He has no bargaining chips. He's thinking that if he can convince them that this is a bad idea, they will say, oh, Oh, gee, we didn't know it would affect you. Sorry, we won't. He doesn't know that. And so he's trying to share with them the reasons why it's a bad idea. And I've told him not to talk with them, but he's doing it anyway. And he's not talking to anybody that could change anything anyway. When you call down there to Lansing and you want to talk to somebody of some stature, they let you talk to their lackeys because they're never going to do what you want them to do anyway. They never have, they never will. They are working their own agenda, and they're taking care of themselves, right? Uh, I counsel a lot of people on this, and I have to tell them, I have to stop them and say, that's a human being, right? That human being has a job, right? That human being needs to eat, right? If they lose their job, they're not going to eat. If they don't work the agenda that's coming down, that they're being told to do, they won't have their job and they won't eat. They're not really taking into consideration what is right and what is wrong. That is the nature of the governments that we deal with on a daily basis. And I mean, you've got to understand that and just go with that. And if they do make a good decision, right on. But mostly they don't make good decisions. They make decisions that don't work in the majority of our favors. And that's just the reality of it. We all went through, 2019, we all went through that. And hey, me and my family, we stood here from our farm and watched it, right? And we had sympathy for the people who bought into it and try to reason their way through it. I actually had sympathy for them. But there was nothing I could do because why would they listen to me about this? I'm not, Deborah Birx or Tony Fauci. I don't even have a white coat or a clipboard for that matter. So why would they listen to me? They're going to trust the science and da 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 da. And they pulled a really good op on a lot of them. Problem, reaction, solution. The solution was this. You know what I'm talking about. We still can't talk about that too much, I'm told. And so here we go again. Here we go again. Will they pull it off? I don't know at this point. I don't know because there is a lot of opposition to this as we speak, a whole lot of opposition. And when I speak with people who call me with their hair on fire, what are we going to do? I say, you need to search for a solution to this because no one's coming to save you on this. No one's coming to save you. You have to search for a personal solution. And I have a personal solution that I'm very comfortable with. And that's the direction that I'm going. This guy here didn't really want to listen to my solution. He wanted to try and work his own, which is good. But someplace in this email, there's these words that say, I'm starting to think that Mark is right. Right? Which is good. That's really good. I mean, I'm not here to say, do it my way or you're wrong. That's not it. We all have to say to ourselves, what is the solution to this, sir? What is the solution to this? We have to ask ourselves those questions because the solution in this case for me might be different than for this guy. This guy wants to negotiate with them. And when he's done with his negotiating process that he's going through right now, he will find out that you can't negotiate with these turds. You really can't. And they never were people that you could negotiate with. They never were. It was never what you thought it was. Department of Agriculture is not about agriculture. They are about control, right? If they were about agriculture, they would be running classes like my wife and I run on how to butcher animals, but they don't. They run regulatory classes on all the stuff that you can't do, all the stuff you can't do. They hire people who are minimally educated to be the the heavies, you know, and roll up on your farm and say, "Oh boy." But I've come to a place where I believe that a solution is right here. You know, we didn't have to invent it. We didn't have to come up with it. And because of that attitude that I've developed about solutions for things, I'm able to see it. And I believe that there's a lot of people that I can tell it to them, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "Yeah, but," and I really want to shake them and say, "Listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what I have been doing for like 5, 6, 7 years now. I think. Has it been that long? What year was that? 14, 15, from 19 or 2015 is when we made our changes here on this farm. So that's 9 years, 9 years. And I tell them what the solutions are and why we were able to operate the way we do. And it's not like I'm doing anything illegal, because if I did something illegal, they don't not arrest you because you wear your hair a certain way, or you know, you can beat them in an arm wrestle, or you can, you know, have some special mojo. No, we're not doing anything illegal, nothing at all. And so this solution that I have found has worked for me, and I've shared it with you before. Basically, it is, you operate on one side of a demarcation line, right? A demarcation line is a dividing line. You can, if you want to, and they'll even help you. They'll even help you if you want to go to the Department of Agriculture and say, "You know what? I need a license to operate my farm." They'll say, "Oh, well, what are you doing?" "Oh, yes, we have a license for that." "And that'll only be $140 a year, and then you're licensed," they'll say. And so in your mind, you think, "Oh, that's money well spent, because I definitely want to be licensed, because being unlicensed is bad." It must be, right? It must be. You don't have a fishing license, that's bad. You don't have a driver's license, ooh, that's bad. You know, that's really bad. If your license is taken away, suspended, that's bad. But we've come to the place where we now understand. We know it. You know, I'm not blurting, right? It's not theory. It's to be true. And my reason for knowing this to be true is, well, I've been operating like this for almost 10 years now. And I've never had a problem with this organization. I don't like the Department of Agriculture. I think we waste a lot of money on them. I think it's a place where they park a lot of freaked out people that probably should have jobs someplace. So I don't like them, but they're irrelevant to me, because I don't have any kind of contract with them. I don't have any kind of license with them. They basically don't have the authority to come up my driveway at all, any more than a religious group could one time come up my driveway and say, "So we understand that you don't have any licenses. We can help you with that. Get a license. Would you like to get a license?" And I would say, "No, thank you. Please don't come back." At that point, I'm on private property. At that point, I've told them, "No, thank you. Leave my property." I'm saying, "Get off my property." And I'm implying I don't want you back on my property, right? And I've done that. I did that. The last time we had anything to do with them, I said in no uncertain terms, "Don't you ever come back on my property again. Do you understand me?" And this kind of lesbian looking broad with a haircut like mine, acknowledged she didn't understand that. And that's it. So I have no contract with them. So I'm not going to play by their rules. I'm just not. I'm going to play by the original contract. And I want to talk about this. This is a solution that I have come to. And the solution I was looking for is, how do I explain this to people so they can understand it? How do you explain it so people can understand it? Okay. Most Americans are in contracts like a cell phone contract. Well, that's a contract. You agree to pay every month. They agree to give you service. When you don't pay, they cut off your service. If they cut off your service, you don't pay. Right? So it's a contract. And it is a contract that is laid over another contract. Okay. So what is that other contract? When I talk about the Constitution with you, I think a lot of people kind of glaze over because they don't, well, how does that apply to me? I really don't know. And my next thing is, have you read the Bill of Rights? It's one page. It will take you to really read it through well, I would say 20 minutes, really, because it's going to set you thinking, right? So I ask people to read it. Please read it. Make it part of you. Why? Because it is the original contract between you, the citizenry, and your employees, anybody that works for the government, like the Department of Agriculture. Now, I don't want to get into tonight that, oh yeah, they're a private corporation, maybe so, but they're contracted with the governor's office. The governor appoints the director. What does the director do? He directs the people that work for him. Who do they really work for? They work for us. We pay their salaries, right? So they are in a contract with us. Our Constitution is a contract, right? You will read in the First Amendment, it says you have the right to free speech, right? So nobody at one of these agencies can say, you can't say that. And if you do say that, we're going to arrest you. They can't. The contract states that I have free speech. Now, that's not the case if you go south of the border. If you start running your mouth about the leaders there, you don't have the guaranteed right of free speech like we do here. And you could wind up in a real bad situation, real bad. South of the border, you don't have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment states that the rights of the citizens to own and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's a contractual issue between us, the citizenry, and our government, because governments are notorious for, they want to have guns, but they don't want the citizenry to have guns. And they always say, well, it's for safety, right? Like, we're trained so we can have guns, but you shouldn't have guns. That's as old. That's as old as they come, right? If you look at all the dictators throughout history, that is one of the first things they like to do is disarm the public, because then the public really can't resist against a government that's well armed. You really can't. It's hard to resist, one guy with a gun. It is really hard. That's why a gun is it's quite the bargaining chip. But if we all have guns, then it's a different story. Then the government is like, well, they got guns, we got guns, so we better be careful with these people because, they could overrun us, right? So that's the purpose why we all have guns. It is a freedom issue. It holds them in check. You think you have that in Mexico? You don't. You think you have it in Peru or Bolivia or Belize? You don't have the right to own a gun. You don't. Furthermore, in those countries, you don't have private property. People would be like, what do you mean, no private property? Well, private property in the United States is if I own the deed on this, if I am, or even if I'm paying on it, it's in the private. It is not public. Public would be like south of me, there's 500 acres and it's public property. It's owned by the state. DNR, I think, actually owns it or takes care of it, but it's owned by the state. It is public. It actually belongs to us, right? It was purchased with our tax dollars and put into a preserve so that we can all enjoy it. Anybody in the state of Michigan can go on that property and they can hunt birds, they can hunt deer, they can just walk, they can't cut trees down, but they can hike and they can camp over there if they want, and they do. That is public, right? But this is private. Private property is governed by the Fourth Amendment, right? And you have to read this amendment. The Fourth Amendment says that you are free from unlawful searches and seizures, that you are secure on your property from the like, right? That means nobody can come on your property on a continuing basis, right? And just look through your stuff. You got a farm, you got a business, maybe you have a mechanic's shop. That doesn't mean that anybody from the county or the state can just come up your driveway and start looking through your tools. Hey, I want to look in your computer. I want to look, let's go in the house. I want to look around at your papers. No, they can't. And the proof that they can't is that they don't. Okay, think about that. We're dealing with a really, really rogue organization right now, Department of Agriculture. And what are their tactics, right? If they had the authority to come on your property and just look through your stuff, if they had that authority, well, they would. They would, right? But they don't. But what holds them? The original contract holds them. The original contract is the U.S. Constitution. That is a federal document. I happen to have one right here. And you will hear people subvert this document. You will hear that. You will hear commentators say, well, this document has been crapped on so many times that it hardly has any teeth anymore, or government doesn't pay any attention to this. That is not true. If that were the case, you would have been disarmed a long time ago. Now, there are some problems there, right? I can think of one right off the bat as far as the Second Amendment goes. Like in the state of Michigan, there is a state law that opines that you have to have a permit, a permission slip from your county sheriff to carry a gun concealed. That means under your coat. Right? Now, is that a valid state law? I say no, because I think it contradicts the Second Amendment. And I would push that one. I mean, I'm not going to go and get permission from my sheriff to carry a gun if I feel like I want to carry a gun. I mean, it's my business. It reminds me of that when they took prayer out of schools. They said, you can't pray in school. Really? How do you know if I'm praying? Well, you just better not. Well, how do you know if I have a gun under my coat? Well, you just better not. How are they going to know you have a gun under your coat? You're protected by the Fourth Amendment. They can't just stop you and search you. That doesn't happen, And it's never happened to me. And in all the time that I've been around, and I've been around the military for 20 years, I was around a lot of guns, right? And when I was in the military, I carried concealed weapons. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the proof that the Constitution is valid lies in the fact that we see the Department of Agriculture going through all of these steps They are putting out articles. There must be 25 of them right now in the state of Michigan of bird flu. It's coming. Measures are going to have to be taken. It could be worse than COVID. Da 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 da. All these things, all this anecdotal evidence that the bird flu is here. Oh, we've got 2 Mexicans down in Montcalm County that have runny nose and red eyes. Right? Oh, it's here. And we've got this confinement operation that slaughtered all their birds. I wonder why. All right. Did they do that in conjunction with an insurance claim? I wonder, So, and now we've got more anecdotal evidence. Well, 1 million birds had to be slaughtered in Michigan. It must be here. But we don't have any solid scientific affidavits that we can show anybody, right? So they are definitely running an op. They're definitely running an op, right? So where does that leave us? What's the solution to this? What is the solution to this? I believe it's going to be a lot like the Wu flu. In this state, the governor wanted, you can't get together at Thanksgiving this year. You can't. No Thanksgiving this year. Well, I did. My family did. I don't give a shit what she says. She can't, with a words out of her mouth, she can't supersede my constitutional rights. My constitutional right that would pertain to that would be the Fifth Amendment, which states that my life, my liberty, and my property is protected under the due process of law, right? Not some words that come out of an elected official's mouth. If you want to restrict our movement, our life, our liberty, or our property, baby doll, get a law going, right? Get one of your lackeys to put a bill before the House, and see how far that goes. Here's a state law that says you can't have Thanksgiving together. Oh, that's not going to go very far. And you'll probably not get elected either. But she did that. She said, oh, you can't plant gardens. And told her friends over at Home Depot, make sure that you cordon off that area. We don't want people having gardens, right? Now, why is that? Why would she do that? I don't know, but you use your head. You couldn't buy lawn furniture. She didn't want to promote anybody sitting around together and maybe having a good time outside. Nope, can't do that. So there was all that, and we lived through that, right? Did I do one thing that they asked me to do? Yeah, one time. And I regret it. And I'll tell you what it is. The whole mask thing. I'm not putting a mask on. I'm just not going to do it. If it came down to it and somebody in an establishment had the wherewithal to prevent me from going to that establishment, then I wouldn't go. That never happened. But there was a time when I was heading over to Beaver Island to see some friends over there. And you got to go on a boat. And I'm looking at the crew. They're all blue collar guys. They're all working for somebody else. And whoever it is that they're working for says, you got to put the mask on. You got to do it. And so I didn't want to hassle these kids, I just didn't. I didn't want to. We were going over there to do something, and I just didn't feel like hassling these kids getting on the boat. So I had a gaiter on. It was cold, and I did one of these. I pulled it up over my face, getting on the boat. As soon as I was on the boat, I sat out on the deck, and I pulled it down, and then I went to reading something. And 2 hours later, it was time to get off the boat. We docked. I forgot all about the gaiter, and I walked off the boat. I forgot all about it. Well, on the way back, I did the same thing because I didn't want to stress out the crew on this boat. They were young people, and so I did it again. Pulled it up over my face, getting on the boat. And then I completely forgot about it. And when I'm getting off the boat, the captain was standing down at the bottom of the gangway, And I thought he was going to shake my hand and say, "Hey, thanks for coming over the island and good to see you," and all this stuff. Guy my age, blue collar guy. And instead, the son of a got in my face, put his finger up in my face and said, "You will put a mask on." And I was 2 steps off the boat, and I'm looking at his crew down unloading cars and stuff. They don't have face masks on. And I looked at him, and it was almost like, you know, but I walked past him and I told him to go to hell, and he couldn't do anything. But it redlined quick because this guy wanted to show that it's his boat and you will do what I say. He got fired after that. Not that incident, but he got fired because he was being such a jerk to the passengers. And you know what? He's just a guy that lives on the island that went and got his seaman credentials and could drive the boat from Beaver Island over to Charlevoix. That was his claim to fame. And now he don't have a job. I think he's working at the gas station on the island or something. But I regretted putting that on because it showed that I would do it. Whereas if I just went on the boat without it, no, I ain't doing it. Take your best shot. They won't mess with you. But because you play the game, they play the game. So I regretted doing that. And I never did anything else that was asked of me. I never stayed out of the store. I went where I pleased. I welcome confrontation because the Walmart greeter is not going to start telling me what to do. When you allow that, I guess the cashiers can tell me what to do. And the boys that stock the shelves, I guess they can tell me what direction to walk in the store. No way. I'm not doing that. You all work for me, actually. I'm way higher up the chain, and you're not going to start telling me what to do, and I just wouldn't allow it. And there was a lot of people that were in the same boat. They just wouldn't allow it. No, I'm not doing it. And I talk to people because of people like us that they. And so here we are again. We're going into the Wu flu or the bird flu. They're going to run it, but we have to be, okay, what are we going to do? What's the solution to this in our circle of influence? I think it's incumbent upon me to bring this to your attention and to tell you, if you don't resist this, then you're welcoming it, right? If you do resist it, they don't have any recourse against you at this point, especially you farms that are on the right side of things. And what I mean by that is, if you have no agreement with the Department of Agriculture, you have no license with them, they can't even come on your property. They can't. The Fourth Amendment prevents that because you are on private property. So it's a very simple process. If they do come on, you say, you get off right now. If they don't comply, then you have options. You have options. If you had a creepy guy that lives next door and he was coming on your property and you felt uncomfortable with him on your property, you would say, get off of my property. If he didn't comply, the next time that he comes on, now we're talking a criminal situation. Criminal. There's two courts. There's civil court and there's criminal court. There's other courts, but the ones that we're going to deal with are civil court. That's the one that we're going to deal with as farmers, because we're not doing anything criminal. I don't want you to do anything criminal. I don't do anything criminal. And I don't think I have. Now, civilly, I did have a license from the Department of Agriculture. And I had one from the USDA as well that we paid on for about 14 years. Now, that's a contract that I made with them. And if I violate that contract, they have the option of pulling me into a civil court because I violated a civil contract, right? If I'm doing something criminal on my farm, that's not that's not in the the circle of influence or that's not the authority of the Department of Agriculture. That is the under the authority of the law enforcement, which would be the sheriff or the state police or the FBI or, name them. Those are what's called law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers don't enforce regulations. They don't have the authority to do it. It's like if you have a regulation in your housing area, an HOA, and you call the cops, hey, this guy's leaving his packages out on the porch, and that violates HOA rules. The cops are like, hey, we don't get involved with that. That's an HOA thing. We are law enforcement. That's a policy. That's an agreement that you made when you moved into that HOA. Police don't get involved with that stuff, right? So the smartest thing you can possibly do is don't get in a contract with the Department of Agriculture. And if you do that, if you do not get in a contract with them, then they are irrelevant to you. They're absolutely irrelevant. So all this stories that I'm hearing now, I'm hearing, the Food and Drug Administration, that's a federal organization, they are urging the state to use their regulatory authority to start testing for bird flu. So they would like to test people, I think, every day, and people that work around cows, and it's the bird flu. I mean, these guys are so conflicted. They're throwing such nonsense at you right now. I mean, it's just about as good as Wu flu. Probably going to get better too. And they would like to test the cows weekly. Well, who's going to pay for that? That's my first question. But my next question is not me. Like, what's in it for me, for you to test my cows? You guys don't really like what I do anyway, sell raw milk. So what prevents you from getting a hot test result? Oh, Baker, your cows got like double bird flu, right? Double bird flu. You can't sell milk anymore. No, your kids are going to have to eat bugs. Well, that ain't going to happen here. And I can tell you why. It's because I'm not going to talk to them. If they send me a letter, it will be used to start the wood stove with. I'm not going to open it. I'm not going to waste my time reading from an agency that is irrelevant to me, right? I don't have to do what they tell me to do. I don't. And that's evident by the fact that they try to coerce you into doing the things that they want you to do via contract. They use coercion. Do the police, if you just robbed the bank downtown and they know you did it, there's a trail of dollar bills coming to your house, and they know that somebody identified you, do they send you a cease and desist notice? You broke a law. They will cuff you and stuff you, and you deserve it. The Department of Agriculture is saying that raw milk is against the rules. Whose rules? Their rules. And they say if you violate the rules, you could be in big. And I think what people have to start to contemplate is, what kind of trouble? Like, what, you disgusting woman in a white coat with a clipboard, what can you do to me? I'd like to see this. First of all, it's never going to happen to me because I'm not going to allow them up my driveway. But we have seen people that are caught off guard, and all of a sudden they've got them on their property, peppering them with questions. And that should not happen. You should never answer one question, not even how you doing today. Who are you? Is what you should be saying. Who are you? Identify yourself and who you work for. And then they're going to say, we'll just have a few questions. No. What do you want? I would just like to ask you a few questions. Why would I answer your questions? You want information from me about what I'm doing here so you can use it on me. Why would I talk to you? Why would I talk to you? Get the hell off, right? They're only there to hurt you, administratively tie you up in knots. That's what they're there for. I got a story to tell you. It's not a good story. It's a bad story, but you're going to hear this story. And when you hear it in its entirety, it's going to have a chilling effect on you. And I don't want that. That's why I'm saying, let's look for solutions. Let's look for solutions. Okay, so an article came out and it came from the Weston Price. And in the past, I've been kind of friendly with them. I've gone to a couple of their conferences, not in about 10 years. They're not interested in my message. My message is we want solutions. We want real solutions. I don't want fake solutions. I don't want solutions that somebody says, well, maybe we could say that we're a church and this is our religion. I've heard that. People are running an op like that. I don't like that because it slights this document. In other words, they're saying, well, this document doesn't quite protect us. So we'll say that the milk that is for dogs, and that's not regulated, they'll say. So you're slighting this document. It could be called subverting too. But people are not doing it for the purpose of leading others away. They just don't know the truth of this document. But there are people that do lead you away from this document. That's a problem that I have asked, what is the solution to this? And so here it is. Here's a solution. Article came out a couple days ago, and I think probably a lot of you have seen it. It came from the Weston Price Foundation. It was signed by Sally Fallon. I do know her. Haven't seen her in a long time, but I do know her. And it lamented about how bad this situation is with bird flu and how these rotten people from the Department of Agriculture and the CDC and the World Health Organization, they are coming for your farms. And man, it's going to be terrible. And this is bad and everything. And your hair about catches on fire when you read it. And then the solution that's given is download this form. It's a form. And you're supposed to ask whoever it is that comes on your farm a list of questions. You say, I need you to fill this out before we can go any further. Well, that falls in the same category, in my opinion, as the Constitution. It just ain't good enough. It just ain't good enough. So fill out this form, and this form is going to protect you. And when I read that, I thought, wow, that is wrong to do that, because with the full knowledge of the power of the Constitution to divert or sublet to a form that somebody created, that somehow when you hand it to a food inspector from the state, they're going to run from it. That it may be intentional subversion, it may be unintentional subversion, but still it is subverting this document. And you just have to know that. Your answer for freedom, food freedom, is found in the Constitution, specifically the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. And Don't forget the First Amendment, and surely don't forget the Second Amendment. Don't forget that, right? If you have a trespasser come on your property and you ask that person to leave, it's good to have an edge, right? If let's say that they're a violent offender, it's good to have an edge. And having a firearm is a good edge, right? Oh yeah, he said it. He said it. I'm not saying pull guns on government officials when they come on your property, but the fact that you have them evens things up a little bit. It evens things up. You're not a subject. You're a citizen. Big difference. Big, huge difference. Like, I wouldn't go to my neighbor's house and knock on his window at night. I wouldn't do that. It could be dangerous. He might think that I'm trying to break in his house and he might unleash something on me, or his wife might. You never know. So if I need to talk to my neighbor, I'm going to try the phone, right? And if I can't get him, I'm going to go out to the end of the driveway. Hey, I need to talk to you. And then, finally, what do you want? But I won't be under a hail of gunfire, if he thinks I'm trying to break in. And is that a good thing? Or that's a damn good thing. It's a damn good, because then everybody is safe. They can provide their own security. I'm not looking for the sheriff's department to provide my family with security. I got that, right? I give them up to need their help. I don't really need your help, right? It's like if somebody criminally trespasses on my property, I got it. I got it. I might be calling you to come and haul their butts someplace else, but don't worry, I got it. And that is the way it is. You can't trespass on people's property. When that happens, you have the authority to arrest that person, hold that person until law enforcement comes, and then press charges against that person. You have that right. That's the original contract, right? The Fourth Amendment is the original contract. Now, if we lay another contract over the top of the original contract, and this is the solution that I've come up with that has been, dropped out of the ether into my head. The solution is to look at this like there are two contracts. There's the original contract, and then if you get a license from the state, there's another contract on top of it. If you are running a farm and you don't want to do business with them, you don't want to follow their rules, don't get it. Leave it alone. Because really, it doesn't help you that much anyway. A lot of times you're coerced into it. You want this loan from the USDA? Are your contracts up to speed? Okay. So if you want this money from us, you got to be in a contract with us. Okay. You go into that contract, you have to take what comes with that contract. All right. So let's put it like this. Another example. If I'm in a contract with the DNR right now, right? I have a fishing license, right? When you get your fishing license, there's a little book there that you can get, and it's free. And you better know everything that's in that, because if a conservation officer stops you and you have a license, you have signed that you will abide by the rules in this book. If you're out on the water in a boat, it says that you have to have a personal flotation device, a PFD, for every person in the boat. Now, you might say, well, the Fifth Amendment says that my life, liberty, and property is protected under the due process of law. And my property is my process. And my process, I could make the case that my process is, I know how to swim. I don't want to take up space in my boat with a life jacket that I'm not going to use. Under the Fifth Amendment, that's valid. But you get a fishing license, now you've laid another contract over the top of it. And you've said that you will abide by that. Now, many of you may ask me, well, then why do you do it? Why do you do it? I'm not going to fight every battle that's out there, right? And that would be a battle that I bought a $14 license. Some of my kids are sensitive to that because they're rightly so. They're afraid of these guys. They are afraid of them because they're very abusive, conservation officers. Not all, but several have been very abusive to my kids on the road. And so they're afraid of them. And so they don't want me to get into it with them. And it's just better if I can show them the license. And then if they want to write a stupid ticket, just write it. You jerk. Just write it. Just ruin our night. You know, I hate them. I just can't stand them. Yep. It'd be one thing if they were trained on how to be gentlemen, but they're not. It seems like they're trained in how to be assholes. That's what it seems like to me. That's what I've witnessed, you know. They just are. We got some beauties around here, I'm told. They don't cross paths with me. Maybe it's luck. Maybe they just don't want to, but whatever. So I guess that is a bit hypocritical, but that's where I'm at right now. I also have a driver's license, which is also a permission slip with the Secretary of State that says that I will abide by all these rules. I will put a registration on my vehicle. I will have insurance on it. I will abide by these traffic patterns and all this. Without the license, I've agreed to nothing. And someday I will do that. Right now, I'm running a farm. I have a mission, and I don't have the bandwidth for it right now. But I think people have told me that they've done this where they ditch their registration, ditch the license, surrender it, and then just drive. And after you get pulled over a couple times, you're not in a contract, and they can't force you into a contract. You know, is it illegal to drive without insurance? Not illegal. It just violates their rules, right? Is it illegal to drive without a driver's license? No, it isn't. Right? But I haven't crossed that bridge yet. Someday I will, but just right now I'm not. And it's for personal reasons. You know, I have small kids in the house, and I don't want to lock horns with those people at this point. At some point I will, but right now, no. Okay, hold on. So the solution to these problems that are coming our way, I believe, are right in front of us. They are not nifty forms that we can download, or creating a food church, or renouncing our citizenship, or being a sovereign citizen. I don't believe in any of that now. I am firmly standing on the U.S. Constitution, and it has worked for me, and it's worked well for me. My family made it through the whole feral swine thing because of the Fifth Amendment. If they could have just swooped in here with a bunch of armed conservation officers and cuffed me and shot my pigs, they would have. They didn't have to coerce me to shooting them themselves if they had the law on their side. But they didn't. They had a contract on their side. Actually, they didn't even have that. They threw it out there, and I bid on it. And it's sort of like biting on a piece of cheese with no hook on it. And I just kept hanging on to it. And what I was trying to do was to get them to agree with me that I should be able to have my animals, instead of saying, go to hell, you can't do anything. And they would have gone away. You know, I didn't do that. It was only in the later stages of the court case that I realized the only reason they're not taking this from me is because they can't. They want me to surrender it. My animals is what it was. And at one point, they wanted to put us under a special license to have pigs out on the dirt, on pasture, right? We would be licensed to do that. Everybody else that has them in confinement, you don't need a license because that's safe. But Mark here is not safe. He's threatening the environment and baby ducks and probably baby seals, because if his pigs do get out, they could become feral. And before you know, northern Michigan would look just like Texas. That was their argument. If they had a law on their side, they could have just come and taken my property. You know, my property at that point would be a controlled substance, and you can't have a controlled substance. They could have just taken it, right? But they couldn't get that done, right? We throw a lot of stones at our system. We could definitely do better, but we could do worse too. We could do worse. Michigan is one of those states where they have kind of a group think at the Capitol, and they gain authority by people complying with them. That's how they gain their authority. And when you think about that, you might have a Walmart greeter that you go walking through there with no mask on and a t-shirt with the middle finger on it, and he'll say, "Hey, you, stop there." And he's got authority, it seems like. Why does he have that? Because every other person that came before you did what he said. If 5 guys in front of you told him to go to hell and you were the 6th guy, you'd tell him to go to hell too. You're not going to tell me to put a face mask on or turn my t-shirt inside out. That was a good one. Gordon Baldwin. That was beautiful. Some Walmart greeter guy says, "You're going to have to turn that t-shirt inside up because it could be offensive to other people." I kid you not. And that came from, "Put your mask on." "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." "Yeah, don't ever let me tell you again. If I see you out in public with no mask on, I'll be talking to you." The Walmart greeter guy. Yeah, so that's what's happened with these agencies, especially Department of Agriculture. I've told you this. You got to know your enemy, and they are going to be the ones at the point of the spear. You need to know this. This is just freedom of speech. This is just reality. A lot of the other departments in a state, like in the state of Michigan, like the DNR, they have a function. They have a function. Department of Transportation, they have a function. And you have to be skilled in order to be in that position. You have to be, you got to be a law enforcement officer for one. So you have to make it through the State Police Academy. And that takes a little bit of doing. They're not retards. They're not. And if you show up at the police academy and you have blue hair and your eyelids pierced and you go by he, him, and they, they're going to say, and maybe you'd be better off over at the Department of Agriculture. You'll get along much better over there. So Department of Agriculture has become a dumping ground. And a friend of mine questioned me about this the other day. Like, how did that happen? And this person is in the mechanical engineering profession. And I said, well, in your business, you're dealing with physics, math, trigonometry, geometry are solid. Their theorems, they don't change. They don't change. You can't say, well, if you're gay, then it's not a 45-degree angle. It's more of a 36-degree angle. Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. And this building won't stand up if we go with what you're saying. But in the biology world, in the biology of science, the science of biology, which is Department of Agriculture, they get a lot of those animal science majors, and agronomy majors, right? It's just so dumb. I mean, it's okay if you go on and you become a veterinarian or something, but a lot of them are really dumb bookbinding type career fields. And they make it through, they get a 4-year degree, and all of a sudden they think they're smarter than you. But it is an absolute dumping ground of people that are where all the woke people are. All the woke ones are stuck over there. So that's kind of what you're dealing with. And they're the worst because people are forced to be nice to them, and they know it. So when they get an unsuspecting citizen, maybe it's just a guy that's farming and, isn't used to any confrontation at all, they can be total jerks. And that's some of the reports that we get back. Like, who do these people think they are? Because agriculture appears in their title, Department of Agriculture, and we're involved in agriculture. They think that they have the authority to supervise us. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. It's almost it's ironic in a way because these people left high school. They always like to tell you that they came from a generational farm too. I love that. Wait a minute, you left high school and you went to college. If you wanted to be a farmer, you had your opportunity. You didn't want anything to do with the farm. Tell the truth. But you didn't know anything else, so you went into animal sciences. Well, I know something about this, and I suck at math, so I'll do this. And then when you get done, you become a food inspector, right? Aren't you proud of yourself? And what do? You do the bidding of, whatever the director wants you to do. And I'm here to tell you this too, you guys. These food inspectors are on thin ice because their hubris is what's going to burn them down. Like, they put things in writing, and they have the cease and desist that we've received. They stepped over the line of degradation of constitutional rights under the color of law. They've stepped over that line, and they can be sued personally. They're not going to go, we're not going to go after the department. That would be stupid because the department doesn't have a legal division. They're going to defer it to the attorney general. So then we're going to be working against our own money. They need to be sued individually. And the reason why they're on thin ice is because the department will throw them under the bus. They'll say, we didn't tell you to do this. So that's their out. There's plausible deniability. This is not a good organization. I can tell you that right now. There's no cohesion in the organization. So they're asking their young people to do stuff that they wouldn't do themselves, So that's it. That's the way it is. That's who we're dealing with here. But I say to you that your answer to this is you let them know, put a sign out in front of your driveway that no trespassing, right? Now that applies to, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Catholics that want to come up. When they see that sign, if you cross that, that's a criminal trespass. Well, it applies to the Department of Agriculture as well. And if they do cross that, then they're subject to 911 call. I got criminal trespassers on my property, and I want an end to this. I want a police report. Now, I don't know where it will go from there because you're relying on the patrolman to do as you ask, but he may say, well, they're a state employee. Like, a lot of patrolmen are new too. If he doesn't do it, if he doesn't make a police report, and all a police report is a documentation of something that you believe is egregious, and then we take that police report and that will go to the prosecutor and he will say, yes, this is egregious. We need to do something about this. Will they? I don't know. But they're elected, right? They're elected officials. And you'd be calling up there, like, why can these guys trespass, but nobody else can? Why are you giving them a pass? When do you come up for election? What's your name? And then you could be going to the sheriff too. Like, he's elected too. Like, you're going to let these guys trespass on my property. Is that it? Is that what you're telling me? They get to trespass because they work for the Department of Agriculture? Are you kidding me? I would be jumping up and down on his desk. And if he didn't act, the way I wanted him on a criminal trespass, I would go to war with him. He's under contract too. He took an oath of office. I would go to war with him and make sure he's out of a job. You want to keep your job? Protect us from these guys. If you're not that into your job, we'll get somebody to take your job. Maybe I'll run against you myself. I've done that before. That doesn't faze me. You know, if I were the county sheriff here, everything would be done per the book, constitutionally. That's it. That's the book right there. That's the supreme law of the land. So for me, the solution to this is the Fourth Amendment. They're not going to come across that chasm between the road and the bottom of my driveway. They can't. Now, some of you might be saying, why don't somebody just say it? Well, what if they get a warrant? All right, let's talk about warrants then. I guess you guys don't know about warrants if you're going to say something like that. There's different kind of warrants. There are arrest warrants. That's where a judge says, suspend this guy's citizenship, pick him up, take his liberty from him. That's an arrest warrant. That's a judge saying, friggin' A, he did this, this, and this, pick him up. That's an arrest warrant. If you have an arrest warrant, they can pick you up at your home. They can pick you up going to the dollar store, any place they want. But you lose your liberty because of something you've done, right? It's not because you violated the Department of Agriculture's rules. It's not. That's not going to happen, right? You have to engage in criminal. That criminal indicates that you broke what? A rule? A law? Didn't wear your face mask? No. A law. You have to break a law, like armed robbery or stealing from a store. That'll get you. Or assault, battery, rape. You know all the things you can get arrested for. Generally, we don't do those things. I mean, I've never robbed a bank. I've thought about it, but I just never did it. Haven't need to. There's too much money to be made, honestly. And any of the other things, I never did that either. I never did assault, and I just never have. Haven't. And I don't plan to. I know that it's illegal. I know it can result in my liberty being taken from me. So I'm not going to do it. I'm telling you, these days, people are edgy. And I go out the door knowing that people are edgy, and I'm not going to react to it. It doesn't matter what somebody would say to me. You know, let's say I park in the handicap zone or something like that. I don't, but let's say I did, and somebody came and started to talk to me about it, or even the captain on that boat. I am prepared to just go gray. I'm not going to react, even to the point of, oh, I'm terribly sorry. Let me move my car right away, ma'am. I'm so sorry. I didn't notice it. Just eat some crow. Why? Because I don't want my life to change because some crazy person, doesn't like. And you're seeing it. You are seeing those things happening. I mean, not just on the internet. It is kind of happening because people are under a lot of pressure. A lot of the pressure that the farms are under right now is because of this department. That's why I call it the Department of Anti-Agriculture. They are thwarting food production in this country. That, to me, is a national security risk what they're doing. And it doesn't surprise me at all because they're not here to serve the people. Their agenda is different. It's a self-serving agenda. They want to be the top dog in their organization, and their organization takes orders from above. So they don't work for the people. And That's just the way it is. I think those things can be changed, and I think that's what we're in the middle of right now. The way things have been going for the last 25, 30 years, right in our face, has to change. It has to change. We can't function as a country like this. Our government, our leaders, people in government, the departments, they are all working an agenda, and it is not our agenda. It is something else. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think the election's going to tell us quite a bit. I think we got a lot of things coming up here pretty quick, and so we'll see. But that's my solution. That's my solution to this problem. You can come up with your own solutions. Some of them are going to be good, and some of them are not. But I think deferring to something other than the Constitution is a slap in the face of that document. And what's interesting about military people, and I am one, and the military did a lot for me, right? It really did a lot for me. I was a completely different guy before my military time. And then the 20 years that I've been farming have done a lot for me too. But one of the things that if you haven't served in the military, you wouldn't know this. You haven't taken an oath of office. We take an oath of office. My oath of office was, as an enlisted man, was to carry out the orders of the officer. No, my oath was to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we're in the business of military operations, so that means that I may lose my life doing that. I'm pledging my life to a document. And then the secondary part of that is, and carry out the orders of the officers appointed above me. But their oath is the same as mine. They are taking an oath to a document, right? I don't see any other militaries that do that have a document that they take an oath to. They basically take an oath to the leadership of the country. So it's quite different. And there are so many of us out here, but we haven't quite gotten to the point where we're willing to say, hey, wait a minute, I took an oath to that document. I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to let you compromise that document. Some low-life person that works for the Department of Agriculture says, I can't have a certain process, or I can't make cream cheese because they say so, or I can't make butter because they say so, because it's not in their rules. I'm not having that. All right. I can't let that go. I just can't. And you may say, well, you let the fishing license go. True enough. You got me there. I'll do something about that fishing license one of these days. But my son gets really stressed out if he thinks I don't have a fishing license. All right, let's see what we got here. I haven't been reading your comments. I will start at the top. Let's see who we got with us. We got Just Me saying howdy. We got Jill's with us. She's the Abundant Living Wellness Coach. Jay-Z's with us. I'll be seeing him on Tribe Day. That's coming up, you guys, by the way. Tribe Day's coming up July 12th. 3-day event here at Baker's Green Acres. You can camp out. We've got some dynamite speakers. We're not expecting a huge group, and that's good. We want to keep it a little bit intimate. Haybine Envy, Jill threw in there. Yeah. All right, Bill 86. Sorry to go off topic, but you're not sorry. You're not sorry. I have a hog with a sore leg. I spooked her and she slipped and fell. Anything you know of I could give her for pain? No, I wouldn't. She'll be all right. They're tough, tough, tough animals. If she hurt herself, she'll be okay. I've seen them recover. I had a hog one time. I had a whole bunch of them down on about a 6-acre field, and there was probably 30 or 40 of them down there. And one of them, I don't know how, I wasn't there, but wound up with a broken leg. And it was hanging. It looked terrible, right? It was just flopping around. And you knew it was in pain, but it didn't seem to phase the animal. It didn't seem to phase him. And I let it go for a day. And then the next day, it seemed not quite so bad. And in a week, it was really not so bad. Still wasn't stepping on it, but it seemed like it had firmed up and it was looking okay. That thing healed. And that pig, we wound up butchering that pig, and that bone fused right on that break. And it was like a torsional break. They're very tough animals. Okay. Bill 86 says, damn, I needs me a solution to my farm issues. Yeah, well, the solution on that, my opinion on this, because what are you going to do? Give him an aspirin? You okay? No, I don't think I would do that. I stay away from medications as much as I can. I don't use anything in my animals. I keep it simple. And if they don't make it, they don't make it. And there's your solution. But something like a sore leg, I think you'd be okay, honestly. Appreciate you asking, though. Dave Duncan's with us. Brian Jacobs with us. I haven't seen you in too long, my friend. Heirloom Northern Heritage. That's a new one. Hi from Southern California, IA. I wonder if we know each other. I knew a farm at when I went to Weston Price one year, and there was a farm that was starting up in Southern California, and I heard they did really well. But I wonder, how did you find us there, Heirloom? That'd be kind of an interesting thing to know. Dave Duncan says, we gathered for Thanksgiving without masks. Wow, you guys are just rogue, aren't you? Not a jabbed or boosted person around, and we had a blast. Well, now's your chance to get out there and get you a bird flu vaccination, because I came up with a vaccine. I didn't sell a single one. I don't know why people didn't take me up on that. The folks are surprised how many Germans went along with the propaganda. We all know who the babies would be now. Yeah, it's not like the Germans didn't know what was going on, but they didn't want to wind up, in the same position. That was a tough situation. And it starts with a very small thing. I'm not sure how well known this is. People said it. Not many people know this, but I do. But I'm not sure how well known this is. But when you watch World War II movies, especially movies, not so much in documentaries. Matter of fact, I never see it in documentaries, but you'll have German officers that are stopping people and demanding papers. Papers, please. They always say it in kind of a German drawl, but that's not even how you say papers, please. And then they'll throw a danke in at the end, because we all know that thank you. They're very good people. Danke. Papers, please. Those papers were health papers. Yeah, health papers, because we got to keep the sick people in the ghettos. And then this is out of hand. We got to move them someplace else. That was what was going on there. Health it's not the first time that health is used as a stick to move people around. And food too. I think that if we were up on our history better in public schools, and we saw how many people Stalin exterminated with food, they restricted the growing of food. And you had people in your township that would come around and, you're not supposed to have that row of peas, rip them out. And if you didn't, you weren't protected by a document like we have. They probably had a Luger in their pocket and they just shoot you. Right? All right. We have not met personally, but have been on previous live streams. Okay. Well, good. I hope we meet someday. I hope to meet all of you someday. Dave Duncan says, I drink certified milk. You haven't had any recently, not from here. I drink private property raw milk. Inga. Yeah. Well, your kids are right in the middle of this thing, and I know what we're dealing with, and I know that you guys are close to us, and they contemplated that before they knocked on their door. And that didn't go the way it should have gone. The way it should have gone, if it was 100%, would have been go out to the road. If you have questions, here's my card. You can email me. But Brian Jacobs says, we all know the babies would be now. Irish never go along. Our Irish are as hard to manage as cats unless you have whiskey, and then you can manage them. That's the only reason why God created whiskey, was because he created this group of people called the Irish people. And he's like, now what do I do? And he's like, I know. I'll create whiskey, real cheap whiskey. All right. So there it is. Next thing coming up is Tribe Day. We didn't do pastured poultry this year. We didn't have enough people signed up for it, and we have enough to do. So if we don't have a big enough class that it benefits the farm, we just decided not to do it. We only had 2 people in the class. One of them was a guy I met at the farm conference, and I said, why don't you come up and help us process chickens Friday? That's as good as getting the class. And so he did. He was a Marine type. And then the other one wasn't going to be able to make it anyway. So nobody was out anything. The next thing is going to be Tribe Day. And I'm looking forward to that. We have some really good speakers. And we're going to have fun. We're going to have so much fun, you're going to need surgery to get that smile off that face of yours, Brian Jacob. Okay, I'm going to get going. I appreciate everybody coming by. Remember, anyone can farm, but if you can't solve your problems, you got to start doing that first. So solutions. Oh, I was going to tell you a story. I got to tell you this story too. This is a good story. There's another article that's circulating around about another farm. And I've been in contact with the people that own this farm. Very nice people, true warriors, and I think you will hear their names in the future. It's their sisters. And one of the sisters did an article with a guy by the name of Joseph Mercola. He is a doctor of something or other, and he runs this like a health food site, and he's really successful, and he's all about life extension. And I've listened to him a few times. He's good. Definitely knows what he's talking about as far as that goes. So this article came out, and these girls actually self-identified themselves as a threat to the machine, and the machine is Department of Agriculture. Like, they are working a system that's really productive. I think people need to watch this because there are opportunities in what these ladies are doing. They're running a co-op, so they aggregate materials from other farms and pay a fair price, and then they mark it up and they distribute it. Nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. It's a real good thing. It makes so the farmers don't have to do as much marketing, so they can spend more time farming. I would like to do business with them. If they were closer, I would. But anyway, they got hit on by the Department of Ag, and they were treated really, really bad. But the Department of Ag messed with the wrong two women, and you'll see. I don't want to tip my hand too much on this, but Dr. Mercola put out an article today, and it was a video article. So I was listening to it as I was cutting hay. A friend of mine sent it to me and said, "Hey, listen to this." And I was really disappointed because he tells the story of what this department did to these girls. And when you hear this, you say, well, I'd never want to farm if I got to deal with those jerks. And I thought he did. He fanned the flames of outrage, but also the flames of fear. Because you start to think, geez, what would happen if that happened to me? I mean, I'm barely paying my bills right now, but if I go in the hole $10,000, I'm done. And that was the gist of the story. And then at the end, where you're waiting for, okay, what are we going to do? You've made your point. This is really a messed up situation. What are we going to do about it? What's the solution? And when we got to that place in the story, the solution was, there's a list of names down below. You write them a letter and you tell them how outraged you are. What, to the Department of Agriculture? Like they give a damn how outraged you are? They get off on you being outraged. They get off on you being scared of not doing a process because of what happened to your neighbor. They get off on that. That is their operating modality. They are into that. And so Dr. Mercola did a terrible disservice by not saying, here's the friggin' solution right here. He didn't. The solution, as far as he was concerned, was, well, you write and tell them that that's not good. So now these girls have to rely on people we don't even know, housewives, soccer moms, farmers, firemen, to sit down and write a letter to the Department of Agriculture here in Michigan, like they're going to move. Like, first of all, you're depending on people you don't know to write a letter. Chances are pretty slim that that's going to happen. Everybody's busy. But then you think that letter is going to provide, a hard place for the director of the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Tim. He's going to say, ooh, I got a letter from Gertrude Smith over here. I think we better back down off this agenda. She sounds mad. He's going to hit the disregard button on that. So he will never even see it. His minions will they don't give a damn. They've got a budget. They've got a budget of your money that they're working with. They don't give a damn what you think, right? That's not the solution. It's not the solution, Dr. Mercola. And if you're a doctor, you're a critical thinker, I would think. Like somebody comes to you with a health issue, we got to find a solution here. Do you not think we need a solution in this case? If we're out of business, there's 20 that go with them. So we need a solution here, pal. We need a solution. And I'd like to be on Dr. Mercola's show. I'd love to. I'd like to be friends with him, but I would school him. Tell me why this Fourth Amendment doesn't work here, Doc. Tell me where that is not the solution to this problem. Because when I discovered it, I've gone to a lot of people who are a lot smarter than me. That's the beauty of the situation that I'm in. I'm a pretty good farmer, but I'm not the Wizard of Oz. I don't know all, right? Like the Wizard of Oz does. So, but I do have smart friends. And I was just finalizing some things today, and I called a friend of mine and I said, let me run this past you. You tell me if there's a problem with this strategy. And he would. But he says, no, I think you got it. I think, so long as there's that separation, they can't take anything from you. They can't gain entry to your property. You don't work for them. How is it that they can make you work their agenda? Like, that's where it stops. That's like a gap that they cannot get across. So, yeah, with all due respect, Dr. McCullough, let's start talking about some real solutions, not you better write your congressman. That's not a solution. Heirloom Heritage, Dr. McCullough rocks. Maybe you know him. Maybe you ought to call him up and say, hey, Mark, I'd like to have a talk with you, pal. Because I would. This guy has a massive platform. Why are we not talking solutions? Same thing with Sally. Massive platform. You realize that if we run this op correctly, this will end. So Heirloom North Heritage, if you have children, do you want them to be dealing with this when you pass your farm on to them? Do you want them to have to put up with this raw milk crap or not? I can tell you, right, having gone through this before, I went through the feral swine thing. If you need to know about that, you can pretty easily Google my name and then DNR, and there's a myriad of stories in there. You can read about it. And we successfully made our way through that. And because we made our way through that, the Department of Agriculture is not able to work the operation that they wanted. And their operation was the invasive species order that they were trying to get consensus on, get a bunch of you weenies to comply with it. And in the invasive species order, it stated that any animal not native to the state of Michigan is potentially invasive and falls under this order. See, so they write an order, they gain consensus on it, they bust some farms, they get some people to go along with it, and then it becomes good as law. Look at us. And you know where you would be right now, you farmers, if that had gone through? You would be having to get a license to have an Araucana chicken because it's not native to the state of Michigan. And if they got it done in Michigan, it would be Indiana, it would be the Midwest. They would get it done. That's where they were going. And so we stood in the way of that, and we did prevail in court. We prevailed in court. Now, why isn't Dr. McCullough saying, hey, how in the hell did you do that anyway? How'd you get that done? Tell me the steps that we need to brief our people on so we can put a fork in this stupid chicken flu, bird flu, because that's my goal. I want to stick a fork in this before the election. I want it over, done. They may still run the operation. Go ahead, run it. I don't care because you can't come on my property. You can't. There's no way you can subvert my constitutional rights. There's no way. Oh, the governor's going to come with an emergency order. Okay, read the Fourth Amendment and you tell me where it says you are safe on your property and your personal effects from unwarranted search and seizure unless the bird flu hits. It doesn't say that. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And if you don't know what that means, look up the word supreme. Just go to Black's Law Dictionary you can Google it and look at supreme. Supreme, David Duncan knows what that means. You can't add anything to it and you can't take anything away from it. If you do, you're changing it. You can't do that. You cannot change the supreme law of the land, and that is the U.S. Constitution. End of story. Now, either the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, or the utterance that comes out of a fool like Tim Boring is the supreme law of the land. So can Tim Boring, the director of the Department of Ag, can he subvert? Can he remove your constitutional rights? Can he take your right to free speech? If he could, he'd be doing it now, right? If he could, he would. What about, you think he'd want to have me disarmed? I bet he would. But can he? Nope. Second Amendment stands in the way of that. Oh, you sure that's not the NRA, Mark? No, it's not the NRA. The NRA is the one that loves to tell you the horror stories and then say, donate to us because we'll keep your guns intact. No, the Second Amendment is keeping my guns intact. Somebody must have said something. Heirloom, nope. We have enough manure, and I support no mandatory beef IDs. Where did that come into the? Okay. New bird flu is already known. That is a chimera, human created. Yes, stand against tyranny. All right, well, I'm glad you agree with that. You know, you'd have to have some serious gonads to say, no, tyranny's good. So long as you're on the winning side. But you'll still wind up eating bugs, even if you are. Somebody must have been talking about changing the Constitution. Need a supermajority of states to amend the Constitution. Nearly impossible. Correct. That is correct. They keep calling for a constitutional convention, right? Nobody will go because I think the right to free speech is a very powerful thing. I use it all the time, right? I think that the Second Amendment is quite important to me. I do not want everybody else armed and me not armed. I mean, it's would be a terrible thing to be disarmed, I think. I think the Third Amendment is pretty good. They don't get to put soldiers in my home. They don't get to put sheriff's deputies in my home either to live. I don't have to billet soldiers in my home. Right? That would suck, wouldn't it? What if they said, hey, you got to put some immigrants in your home? Well, yeah, they're illegal. They can't do that. That's because it's private property. If they could, they would. You know that, because that would really disrupt things in America. And they are trying to disrupt things, to put us in austerity. And then someone's going to come along and solve that problem. Heirloom, no, I'm just going along with the rant. All right, cool. I'm not beating up on you. All right, we're in good shape, folks. We're in a lot better shape than we know. We don't have to wait for a majority of housewives to call the Department of Agriculture. I'm not saying don't do it. That's a good thing. It's actually a really good exercise. I've done it. I've done it a lot. Where you call down there just for the heck of it. Just you get them on. You've called them once, and then you get a minute. Boom, you hit them again. Yeah, and keep them on the phone. You're going to get a lackey on the phone, but explain this to me. What's going on here? What you guys are trying to accomplish? I'm not sure I understand this. And I'll even bring up my own name. I'll say, well, he's saying this, and I want to hear what they have to say about me. You know, I troll them hard, but they can't troll me, right? Like the original contract, it works for me. The contract that they try to get me to lay over the original contract works for them. Imagine that. Imagine that. It's as simple as that. Go with the original contract. All right, I got to get going. Au revoir.